Okay, so this is sketching video number 2, Introduction to Sketching. The last video I had, you would have been drawing this item here, so the cube. You all actually did a really good job at drawing the cube in the right angle and putting in the right shading to it, and that can be really tricky for some people, so well done on that. What we're going to do today is we're going to start looking at the cylinder here. We're also going to look at the idea of shading and the different types of shading there are. There's a couple of different ways of doing it, and they can all link in with different styles of drawing then. So this is what we're going to focus in on. And then we're going to look at how shading can also be done with colour as well, as you can see through these examples here. Okay. Right, first things first, what you'll need for today, you'll need a pencil. As I said the last time, preferably around a 2B if you have one. If not, a H pencil will do. You'll also need one or more colouring pencils as well. I don't mind how many, as long as you can add a little bit of colour depth to your work. For sketching then, you're also able to have a topper, like that, and you should have an eraser like that. Okay. I would say, and I never said it to you last day, sketching does not involve a ruler. It does not involve any straight edge. You didn't see me use one of these the last day, so you shouldn't be using one either. The other thing you can have for when you're doing your sketching, for when you finish with your sketch, is a thing like this. It's called a fine liner pen. It has a top on it like that. You can see there, if the camera will focus on it. Oops. It has a top like that, and that just means that you'll be able to put a really nice black outline on your sketch and give it a little bit more definition. Okay. So where do we start? When you're drawing a cylinder, I always like to draw the center axis of the cylinder. So the center axis is a line. Again, we're going to go up about 30 degrees. We're just going to draw one line along. All right, so it's going at an angle of about 30 degrees. And again, you saw I didn't lean on my pencil there. I just let it go through. What you're going to do then is you're going to put the circles at each end of the cylinder. Now, there's a really important bit of information for when you're drawing cylinders like this. If I was to take, if I was to take this battery here, for example, when you look at the end of that battery like that, camera chance to focus, you see a perfect circle. So the diameter this way, so the width from the top to the bottom, is exactly the same as the width from the side to the side. Now, if I turn the cylinder like this, when you look at this edge here now, that did just look like a circle 2 seconds ago. You know it actually is a circle, but it doesn't look as like one. And that's because it did this thing called foreshortening. Give the camera a chance to focus. So when it does a foreshortening, it means that the height will generally stay the same, but the width has gotten narrower. So if we were to draw this, it will be narrower than it is higher. If I have my circle like this and I tilt it away this way, you'll see that the width of it this time is the same, but the height, or we'll call it the height here, is now shorter. It's a thing called foreshortening. If I show you how that works, so what it would be is that if you have a sheet of paper like this, right, that sheet of paper is turned away from you. But if I was to sit that paper so that you're looking straight at it, so if you were this person here, looking straight at that piece of paper, it would be more like this. Now, if I told you that was a square piece of paper. So you see what I mean when I say that when I've turned, it gets narrower than it actually is. So that's the kind of principle that's going to help you with this drawing of a cylinder like that now. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw the circles at each end of my cylinder. To do that, I'm going to draw a vertical line. So a vertical line is a line that goes up and down at the front and at the back of my cylinder. I'm going to put it about this long. Okay. So I've decided that's the front and that's the back of my cylinder. That's where it'll start and end. Now, to be able to draw the circle, and to be able to draw the circle so that it's going to be equal, I'll need to go up an equal distance on the top and the bottom. But the distance I need to go out on the sides will have to be same on both the front and the back to make it look right. So what I do there is I'm going to actually draw another 30-degree line, but it's going to go the opposite way. But it has to go through where this cross was. So I'm just going to draw another guideline. And these are what these are. They're guidelines. Okay. So that's what I have at the moment. It looks a bit funny, right, doesn't it? For my two crosses like that. So what am I going to do next? I'm going to change the lighting here. Oops. Okay. I need to draw my circles. Now, as I showed you up here, so if I had a square that was turned away, it would look narrower. And as I showed you with the battery there a second ago, if I wanted to draw, let's say, this circle, if I wanted to draw this circle, and I'll notice as well, lads, when I'm drawing a curve, I keep my hand moving. I trace it over a few times before I actually bring my pen to the paper. If I wanted to draw that turned away from me, it would look more like what you would know as an oval, like that. So you see it's gotten a little bit narrower, but it's the same height. That's what we're going to do over here. Now, I want this to be roughly this high on the front. To make sure that that's the same at the back, I'm going to bring a line parallel back from there. So just so I can draw my circles in, right? There we go. So I've got that down. I want to eyeball this and bring this down about the same distance underneath. If you're struggling to eyeball it, what you can do is you can use your thumb and a pencil like this. You can go, right, that's roughly that long. So I'll need to mark off where my thumb is there now. I find it easier just to eyeball it. Okay, and we mark that off. Same thing again, we'll bring this line back parallel. Okay. Now I'm just going to tidy my sketch up there a little bit because we don't need that tail, and I think that tail is going to get a bit confusing. I also don't need this bit coming at the front at the moment. Okay. So this is what we have at the moment. We have what looks like a really long rectangle, like that, and we have these two bits in the front. I'm going to mark off now about this distance. Okay, so it's not bigger than these lines, it's to be shorter than these lines. It's the only way it's going to look right. So this one looks a little bit long, so I'm going to make that a little bit shorter and come out with the same here. So where I've marked those off now is where I'm going to draw my curve to, hopefully. So the fun thing, or the good thing about sketching is I can actually move my page if it makes it easier for me. So I'm going to draw in the curve, trying to hit all of those points that I've just put in. Okay. A little bit wobbly at the moment, but we'll flesh that out later. This is just the skeleton. I can bring these points back to this line, again, by going parallel. And the more experience you get, guys, the less likely you'll need to do all of this skeleton building as well. We can mark that off, and then we're just going to draw nice and lightly in. We're going to draw in our circle back here as well. Our oval shape, I should say. Okay, now that looks like an absolute thundering piece of mess at the moment, but that's fine. And I'll show you what that's fine in a second. So what I need to do now is I need to start defining my shape, and I start picking out, okay, what lines am I actually going to keep? I'm going to keep this top line, so I'm going to put that top line in heavier because this is where it disappears. So if you follow this curve around, it would disappear about here. And this is just me putting my lines in that little bit heavier. I can do the same in at the end then as well. Now, the shorter cylinder you've decided to draw, the easier this will be. I'm not going to see any of this detail back here because that's going to be hidden by the cylinder. So you can see here, I wouldn't see the back of this battery now at all. So we're not going to see this line. So that's why I'm not too worried about that. I am going to, however, see this front line. So my pencil, I'm going to flesh that line out. And when you're fleshing out a line, it means you're making it stand out more. And the last part we're going to flesh out is this part here. Now, when I drew this originally, I think I went down a little bit too low here. So I'm going to cut that in a bit. and come back around on top. And just, again, flesh that out. So there's our cylinder done. I know it's a really long way of doing it, but it will pay off for you. It'll teach you how to lay out the skeleton of things. All right, once we have that done, for this video, I'm going to go away and I'm going to get my fine liner, and I'm going to define my lines with this pen. And the reason I'm doing that so early is that when I go to start shading, these lines won't disappear on me. And they won't move. So you don't have to have one, but it just makes things a little bit tidier. Okay. So I have that. Now, when I talk about shading on the cylinder, we need to think about a couple of things. You need to think about what kind of material the cylinder is. You need to think about where the light hits the cylinder. So the last time we were drawing the cube, we said the light would come in this way. And even if you take my hand there, you can see the shadow projects under my hand and further away because the light's coming in from about here at the moment. So if I was to apply that principle to this battery here, okay, you can see if I pick this up, you can see the shadow coming out under. And what's interesting is if you look at this, there's two different textures on this. So there's the plastic coating on this, and then there's the aluminum here. You can see when you shade in for metal, it always has these really bright streaks on the top. That's where the light is. It actually reflects the light. Whereas on the plasticky part, it just gets darker towards the end. It gets lighter, but it also gets darker again as it bends away from the light. We're going to pretend ours is plastic at the moment. So we're going to have a middle or upper section here that's getting a lot of light, so it's not going to be as dark. We're going to have a little bit more shading at the back where the cylinder curves away, and a lot more shading at the front where the cylinder curves down under. We're also going to have a similar shadow to what's being shown here. So how am I going to shade that? What you can do is you can go along with your rubber and you can lighten up your lines there. You do not get rid of them because graphics is all about seeing how things are made. So I'm just going to lighten these lines up a bit. But when I finish lightening them, you should still be able to see them. So just like that. Okay. I'm going to take this blue pencil. I'm going to shade this in. Now, when you're shading, it's actually easier if you use the side of the pencil. So you can see the way I'm holding the pencil, so as I can get into the corner here. The underside is going to be dark, so I'm going to put a really, really heavy amount of pencil here. The more you lean on a pencil, the darker you'll get. So you can see I'm using the edge of the pencil so that you don't have to keep tapping your pencil. Rotate it a little bit as you're using it, and you can go up another line. Now the next line is going to be a little bit lighter. We're going to be trying to blend those lines. Think of those haircuts at the moment when mom and dad are trying to cut your hair for you at home. If any of the lads are getting their hair cut, you want to blend those lines. Okay, you can see it's starting to have a little bit of depth. Next bit up, probably not going to be as dark at all. Again, when you're using your pencil, make sure you're rotating so you don't have to keep tapping it every 2 seconds. Okay, I'm going to stop there because what I want to do is I want to go around to the back edge here, again where we said the light's going to fade, and I'm going to put a bit of darker colour there. Okay, you can see as well that I go a little bit more up on the curve at the ends than I do in the centers, just because the light's going to focus a little bit more on those points. It's going to be a little bit darker. All right. Again, we're going to blend. We're going to blend back to having, so it's nearly white here in the middle. So come back a bit, blend, lighten it up, and lighten this one up a lot more, a lot faster than you did from the underside. Okay, we can add a little bit of color to the middle then. All right. So you have this. I want a little bit more color underneath, so I'm going to go back now and I can do the fine tuning. Add more color here. I'm going to follow the curve up and just add a little bit more color. The reason I do that is it also gives the cylinder a little bit more shape. So you can actually give things shape with color as well. Just like that. We'll do the same at the top, and we'll do the same here at our front edge. Okay, so we're nearly done with the cylinder now. Depending on where you think the light is coming from, would depict what colour this is going to be. I want to say that it's quite dark because there's not much light coming onto it. Now, again, remember, if you're going to be shading this in, if you're using the edge of the pencil, make sure all of the shading goes the same way across. All right. So there's that. Front face of the cylinder there. The cylinder body getting lighter. There's one last thing. If we look at the shadow here from our battery, I'll put it down a bit, you'll see that it's also going to be that little bit rounded. So we want to do that same with this shadow. Side of your original pencil, especially if it's a dark pencil, that'll help you, or a soft pencil. And go right in under your cylinder. And get a nice dark line like that. Okay. We're going to need to fade that shadow out though, because even look at this. See the way the shadow gets a little bit lighter as it's going out? But we're going to make that, where there's 3 steps there, we're going to make that a little bit more gradual. So we're going to come along. Second pass. Third pass. And there we go. If you want to blend that sketch in a bit more then, you can just dampen your finger a little bit. And now this only works really well on graphite, so don't be doing this on your coloured pencil. And you can just smudge that out a bit and blend it a little bit more. That's only to be done for the shading though. That's not to be done when you're actually doing shading your objects. It's only done for shadows. Okay, your task for this week is going to be draw 3 of those. 3 of them. Now, I want you to pay attention as well. Look how much darker that is now than those original pencil lines I had done. And they looked quite heavy at the start. That's 16 minutes for this video. I'm going to stop this video now. And I'm going to do a second video on the different styles of shading you can do. So you could test out the different types of shading on your other cylinders if you want to try that. Okay.